I want a divorce. Those 4 words didn't even make him look up from his phone. That's when Solane knew her Korean mafia boss husband never actually saw her at all. She was just another asset, another tool. But when she walked out, pregnant with his child, everything changed. Because the man who couldn't remember her favorite color suddenly couldn't forget her face. And his obsession? It was about to turn her whole world upside down in ways she never saw coming. The pregnancy test sat on the bathroom counter like a tiny bomb. 2 lines. Solène pressed her palm against her stomach, feeling nothing yet, but knowing everything had just changed. She'd suspected for weeks, but kept pushing the thought away, because honestly, bringing a baby into this marriage felt like a cruel joke. She could hear Hyunwoo downstairs, his voice cold and clipped as he spoke Korean into his phone. Probably business, always business. In the 18 months they'd been married, she could count on one hand the number of real conversations they'd had. Their marriage wasn't a romance, it was a transaction. She'd figured that out around month 3 when she realized he'd married her specifically because she was a financial genius who could make money move invisibly across borders. Her accounting degree from Stanford wasn't just impressive to him, it was useful. And Solane had been stupid enough to think maybe he'd learned to love her along the way. Ridiculous, she whispered to her reflection. The woman staring back looked tired. Her dark skin had lost its glow. Her curls were pulled into a messy bun she hadn't bothered to fix in days, and her eyes looked sad, really sad. When had she become this person? She picked up the test and walked downstairs, still not sure what she was going to say. The Manhattan penthouse was all glass and steel and expensive things that Hyun-woo bought but never actually looked at, kind of like her. He was in his office, door half open. She could see him leaning back in his leather chair, ankles crossed on the desk, still on the phone. Then she heard him laugh. Hyun-woo never laughed with her. "Hyung, relax," he said in Korean. Solène had picked up enough over the months to understand most conversations. The wife handles all the books. She's brilliant with numbers, keeps everything clean. A pause. Love her? His tone shifted, like the question confused him. She's useful, very useful. But you know how it is. These American marriages are just business with paperwork. Solène's hand tightened around the test. She doesn't ask questions, doesn't cause problems. Honestly, I barely remember she's there most days. Something cracked inside her chest. Not her heart breaking. That would imply her heart had been whole to begin with. This was different. This was clarity. She turned around, walked back upstairs, and started packing. 2 hours later, her suitcases sat by the door. She'd called her cousin Jade in Chicago, who said she could stay as long as needed. She'd opened a new bank account he didn't know about and transferred the money her grandmother left her. She'd even called a divorce attorney who said they could file tomorrow. Hyun-woo came out of his office around 8, finally off the phone. He glanced at the suitcases. Going somewhere? I want a divorce. He blinked, actually looked at her for maybe the first time in months. What? A divorce, she repeated, keeping her voice steady. I'm done. Done with what? He genuinely seemed confused. With being invisible, with being useful, with this whole thing. She gestured between them. We both know this isn't a real marriage. Solène, you're being dramatic. Am I? She almost laughed. When's my birthday, Hyun-woo? He hesitated. What's my favorite food? My favorite color? Literally anything about me that isn't related to balance sheets and tax codes. His jaw tightened. This is ridiculous. You're upset about something. We can discuss it. There's nothing to discuss. She grabbed her suitcase handles. My lawyer will send the papers. Wait! He stepped forward, and she saw something flicker in his expression. Not love, maybe annoyance. You can't just leave. Watch me. The business needs you. I need you. And there it was. Find another accountant, she said quietly. I'm sure there are plenty who are useful and forgettable. His eyes widened slightly. He'd heard that conversation. Good. She walked out and didn't look back. The first month in Chicago was hard. Jade's apartment was tiny, but felt more like home than the penthouse ever had. Solène cried more than she wanted to admit, hormones and heartbreak mixing into something exhausting. But she also started feeling like herself again. She took walks along Lake Michigan, let Jade drag her to soul food restaurants in Bronzeville, and started freelancing for small businesses who needed accounting help. Nothing shady, nothing complicated, just honest work. And she didn't tell anyone about the baby. Not yet. That was hers to process first. Hyun-woo called exactly once, 3 days after she left. She let it go to voicemail. He didn't leave a message. The divorce papers were served 2 weeks later. He didn't contest them, didn't even respond through a lawyer. It stung, honestly. Even though she'd wanted out, some tiny, stupid part of her had hoped maybe he'd fight, maybe he'd realize what he'd lost. But no. He signed everything and sent it back within 48 hours. Good riddance, Jade said, pouring them both tea. Well, tea for Solène, wine for herself. That man didn't deserve you anyway. I know. Do you, though? Jade gave her that look. Because you've been moping like you lost something valuable. I lost 18 months of my life. So don't lose any more. Jade reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You're free, Solène. Act like it. She tried. She really did. But late at night, she'd wonder if Hyun-woo ever thought about her, if he ever realized she'd been more than just useful, if he even noticed the apartment felt different without her. Probably not. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Solène was 12 weeks pregnant, just starting to show if you looked close enough. She'd had her first ultrasound the day before, heard the heartbeat, cried in the parking lot for 20 minutes. She was going to be a mother, and she was going to do it alone. That night, Jade insisted they celebrate the divorce with deep dish pizza and a Marvel movie marathon. Solène fell asleep on the couch halfway through the second movie, feeling lighter than she had in months. She didn't know that back in New York, Hyun-woo's world was falling apart. Without Solène managing the books, transactions were getting flagged, money was disappearing into the wrong accounts. His operations were bleeding cash because apparently she'd been the only thing holding the financial side together. His brother Tae-hyun called it karma. You treated her like an employee, Tae-hyun said, not hiding his frustration. She was your wife. She was fine with the arrangement. Was she? Tae-hyun shook his head. You're brilliant at business, Hyun-woo, but you're an absolute idiot with people. Hyun-woo didn't respond. He'd been having trouble sleeping since Solène left. The penthouse felt wrong, too quiet. He'd catch himself looking up to tell her something about his day before remembering she wasn't there. It was annoying. He told himself he just needed to find a new accountant, someone equally skilled, then everything would go back to normal. Except 3 different accountants quit within the first 2 weeks. Your systems are a mess, the last one said. Whoever set this up was a genius, but without documentation, I can't figure out what half these accounts are for. Because Solène had kept it all in her head. She'd created an entire financial ecosystem that only she understood, and now she was gone. Find her, Hyun-woo told his head of security. The man hesitated. Sir, she filed for divorce. Maybe we should respect. I don't care about the divorce. I need her to fix this. He paused. Please, find her. It took less than a day. Chicago, living with a cousin in a small apartment in Wicker Park, working freelance. Seemingly happy. Hanyu stared at the report for a long time. Then he did something he never did. He left his business in Tae-yun's hands and bought a plane ticket. Because maybe his brother was right. Maybe he had been an idiot. And maybe it was time to fix that. Celine was leaving a client meeting on a Thursday afternoon when she felt it, that weird prickle on the back of her neck that meant someone was watching. She turned around, scanning the busy Chicago street, and froze. Because there, leaning against a black car like he had all the time in the world, was her ex-husband. Hanyu looked the same, expensive suit, perfectly styled hair, expression unreadable. But something in his eyes was different, intense, almost hungry. He pushed off the car and walked toward her. "Hello, Celine." Her heart hammered. "What are you doing here?" "We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about. The divorce is final." "I know." He stopped a few feet away, hands in his pockets. "I'm not here about that." "Then why are you here?" His eyes dropped briefly on her stomach, and Celine's blood went cold, because she was wearing a fitted dress today, and the small bump was definitely visible if you knew what to look for. And from the way Hanyu's expression shifted, shuddering into something she couldn't read, he absolutely knew what he was looking at. "You're pregnant," he said quietly. It wasn't a question. Celine lifted her chin. "That's none of your business." "Is it mine?" The street suddenly felt too loud and too quiet at the same time. She could lie, should lie probably, but she'd never been good at dishonesty. "Yes." Something flashed across his face, too quick to identify. Then he smiled, and Celine realized with sinking certainty that she'd just made a huge mistake. Because that wasn't a happy smile. That was the smile of a man who'd just found exactly what he'd been looking for. "We definitely need to talk," Hanyu said softly, "and this time you're going to listen."
If you're loving this story so far, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me whether you think Soleil should hear him out or run for the hills. Also, subscribe because this story is about to get wild and you don't want to miss what Hyunwoo does next. "No," Soleil said it firmly, stepping back. A couple walking past gave them curious looks but kept moving. Chicago didn't stop for anybody's drama. "Soleil, please." Hyunwoo's voice had that controlled quality she remembered, every word measured. "Just coffee, one conversation." "I don't want coffee with you. I don't want anything with you." She clutched her bag tighter. "You signed the divorce papers without a single word. That told me everything I needed to know." "I made a mistake." She actually laughed at that, couldn't help it. "Now you figure that out, 3 months later, when you need something?" "This isn't about business. Everything with you is about business." "Not this." He looked at her stomach again, and something in his expression cracked slightly. "Not her, or him. Not our child." "Our child." The word sounded foreign in his mouth. "You have no rights here," Soleil said quietly. "I'm keeping this baby, but you don't get to suddenly play concerned father because it's convenient." "Convenient?" Hyunwoo's control slipped for just a second. "You think any of this is convenient? My entire operation is falling apart. I haven't slept properly in weeks, and all I can think about is that you're gone, and I—" He stopped himself. Soleil mated. "I miss you," he finished, and he sounded almost angry about it. Her throat tightened. "You miss what I did for you." "No." He stepped closer. "I miss you. The way you'd hum while working, how you organized everything by color, the face you'd make when you were concentrating." He paused. "I miss having someone to come home to, even if I was too stupid to appreciate it at the time." Soleil wanted to believe him. That was the dangerous part. Some wounded piece of her heart wanted this to be real. But she'd learned her lesson. "It's too late, Hyunwoo." "It doesn't have to be." "Yes, it does." She started walking. "Go back to New York, find another accountant, forget about me like you did when I was actually there." She made it half a block before he called out.
I know your birthday is July 17th. Your favorite color is that specific shade of purple that looks like a sunset. You hate cilantro, you drink exactly 2 cups of coffee every morning, and you take it with too much cream and not enough sugar. You reorganize bookshelves at stores without meaning to. You cry at dog videos, and your favorite thing in the world is those little lemon cakes from that bakery in Brooklyn that we went to exactly once, but you talked about for weeks after. Solane stopped walking, turned around slowly. Hyunwoo stood in the middle of the sidewalk, hands still in his pockets, looking uncomfortable and determined at the same time. I noticed, he said quietly. I always noticed. I was just too much of a coward to let it mean something. Her eyes burned. Why now? Because losing you made me realize I never actually had you, not really, and I want a chance to do this right. Let me try, please. I'm pregnant with your baby, and we're divorced, Hyunwoo. There's no doing this right. Then let me do it better. Let me prove I can be someone worth having in your life, in our child's life. A taxi honked. Someone's phone rang nearby. The world kept spinning while Solane's tilted sideways. 1 coffee, she heard herself say. You get 1 conversation, then you go back to New York and we figure out co-parenting like adults. That's it. The smile that crossed his face was soft and real and nothing like the cold expressions she'd grown used to. 1 coffee, he agreed. They ended up at a small cafe near Jade's apartment. Solane ordered decaf with too much cream. Hyunwoo got black coffee he barely touched. How far along? He asked. 15 weeks. And you're healthy? The baby's healthy? We're fine. He nodded, fingers tapping against his cup, nervous. She'd never seen him nervous before. I brought you something, he said suddenly, reaching into his jacket. Hyunwoo, it's not a bribe, just something I found. He pulled out a small wrapped box. Against her better judgment, Solane opened it. Inside was a children's book. Not new. The cover was worn, corners bent. Her breath caught. How did you... I knew you mentioned it once, Hyunwoo said quietly, about 8 months ago. Said your grandmother used to read it to you and you'd been trying to find a copy, but the edition was out of print. It was exactly the edition she'd been looking for, the one with the original illustrations. I had someone tracking rare book sales. This came up 2 weeks ago in an estate sale in Portland. He cleared his throat. I thought maybe you'd want to read it to the baby. Solane's hands trembled slightly as she held the book. He'd been looking for this for months, since before she left, since before everything fell apart. I don't understand you, she whispered. I don't understand myself lately. He tried to smile. Turns out losing the most important person in your life makes you reevaluate things. I wasn't important to you. You were the only important thing. I was just too broken to know how to show it. They sat in silence for a while. Solane ran her fingers over the book's cover, mind racing. Finally, she looked up. If we do this, if I even consider letting you be part of this, there are rules. Anything. No more illegal business. I won't raise a child around that. His expression shuddered. Solane, it's not that simple. Then we're done here. She started to stand. Wait. He reached across the table, stopping just short of touching her hand. I'll figure it out. I promise. Just don't leave. I need to see real change, Hyunwoo, not promises. Then stay in Chicago. Let me visit. Let me prove I can be better. You live in New York. I can travel. He said it like it was obvious. I'll come every weekend, more if you'll let me. That's crazy. Probably, he almost smiled, but I'm not losing you again, either of you. Solane should have said no, should have set firm boundaries and kept her heart locked up safe. But she was tired of being scared. And maybe everyone deserved a second chance. Even cold Korean Mafia bosses who were trying desperately to thaw. Weekends, she said finally. You can visit on weekends, but you stay in a hotel, we take things slow, and the second I feel like this is a mistake, you're gone. Understood? Understood. They shook on it, formal and awkward, and Selene tried to ignore how warm his hand felt, how much she'd missed even this small contact. She was in so much trouble. The next 8 weeks fell into a strange rhythm. Hyun-woo flew to Chicago every Friday night and left Monday morning. At first, he'd just take Selene to dinner, nice places, quiet places where they could actually talk. She learned things she'd never known, like how he'd grown up in Seoul with a father who valued power over everything else, how he'd been sent to New York at 19 to build the American branch of the family business, how he'd taught himself to be cold because showing emotion was weakness in his world. My father once told me that love makes you controllable, that caring about people gives them power over you. That's awful. That was my normal, until you. You were the first person who made me want to be controlled by someone, to care more about your happiness than my power. It terrified me. Selene's heart squeezed. So you pushed me away. I pushed you away, he agreed quietly, and lost everything that mattered. She reached across the table and took his hand. He looked at their joined fingers like she'd given him something precious. By week 3, the dinners turned into day trips. Hyun-woo rented a car and they'd drive to random places, a small town with an amazing farmer's market, a beach along Lake Michigan where they walked for hours, even a pumpkin patch where Selene absolutely destroyed him at finding the perfect pumpkin. You're way too competitive about this, he said, watching her examine her 7th pumpkin. Says the man who turned picking apples into a race last week. That was different. I was winning. She laughed, and the sound made him smile in a way that crinkled his eyes. He was becoming someone she actually liked. Week 5, he showed up with bags from a baby store. Hyun-woo, you can't just... I know, you said no expensive gifts. He held up his hands in surrender. But these are practical. Look, bottles, diapers, one of those weird suction nose things that apparently babies need? Selene tried not to laugh at his bewildered expression. Have you been researching baby supplies? Extensively. Did you know there are 47 different types of bottle nipples? 47! How is anyone supposed to choose? She completely lost it then, laughing until tears ran down her face. Hyun-woo watched her with soft eyes. I missed that sound, too. What sound? You laughing. You happy. He set the bags down. I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you laugh like that every day. And Selene realized with stunning clarity that she was falling for him again. Or maybe for the first time. Because this Hyun-woo, the one who researched baby bottles and brought her favorite snacks and listened when she talked about her day, this was someone new, someone real. But week 7, everything changed. Selene came home from a doctor's appointment to find her apartment full of flowers. Not a nice bouquet, full, every surface covered. Roses, lilies, orchids, arrangements that probably cost thousands of dollars. Jade stood in the middle of it looking concerned. Your ex-husband has lost his mind, she said flatly. Solene's phone buzzed, a text from Hyun-woo. The doctor said you're having a girl. I wanted to celebrate. Her blood went cold. How does he know what the doctor said? Another text came through. I may have asked them to send me updates. I wanted to make sure you're both healthy. Is that wrong? He bribed my doctor? Solene's voice came out sharp. Oh no, Jade's eyes widened. Selene called him immediately. He answered on the first ring. Do you like the flowers? I wasn't sure which. You contacted my doctor? Silence. Hyun-woo, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, he said quietly. You mentioned the appointment, and I thought maybe if I made a small donation to the hospital. A donation? You can't just buy your way into my medical information? I'm the baby's father. Don't I have a right to know? Not like this. Her hands were shaking. This is exactly what I was afraid of. You trying to control everything.
I'm not trying to control anything. I'm trying to be involved. By bribing people? By going behind my back? Solane, please. I need space. Don't come this weekend. Wait! She hung up, stared at the flowers that suddenly felt suffocating, and wondered if she'd made the same mistake twice. Hyun-woo didn't listen. Of course he didn't. Saturday morning, Solane found him sitting outside her apartment building. He'd been there all night, based on the coffee cups scattered around the bench and the tired shadows under his eyes. I told you not to come, she said, stopping a few feet away. I know. He stood up slowly, like his back hurt from the bench. You violated my privacy. I know that too. He ran a hand through his hair, messing it up for once. I panicked, Solane. You stopped telling me details about the appointments, and I thought maybe something was wrong and you weren't telling me, and I handled it badly. You think? I'm sorry, he said it simply. I'm really, truly sorry. It won't happen again. How do I know that? How do I trust you're not going to keep trying to control everything? You don't, he admitted. I haven't exactly earned your trust, but I'm asking for the chance to, for real this time. Solane wanted to stay angry, she really did, but he looked genuinely miserable and sleep-deprived and more human than she'd ever seen him. One more chance, she said finally. But Hyun-woo, I mean it. You have to respect my boundaries. I'm not one of your business deals you can manipulate. I know you're not, he said, stepping closer. I'm the woman I love, and I'm trying very hard not to mess this up worse than I already have. Her breath caught. What did you say? I love you. He said it clearly, looking right at her. I should have said it months ago, years ago maybe, but I'm saying it now. I love you, Solane. Not what you can do for me, not what you represent. You, the stubborn, brilliant, beautiful woman who somehow saw something worth saving in me. Tears pricked her eyes. You can't just say that and expect everything to be okay. I know, but I needed you to hear it. He smiled slightly. Also, I sold the business. Solane blinked. What? Well, the illegal parts, anyway. I'm keeping the legitimate investments, but the rest? He pulled out his phone, showing her legal documents. I signed everything over to Taehyun yesterday. He's going to slowly dismantle it, get people out safely. It'll take time, but I'm done. She stared at the papers. You actually did it.
You said you wouldn't raise a child around that life, so I chose. He met her eyes. I chose you, both of you, every time. Solane's hand went to her stomach automatically. The baby kicked, like she knew her father just turned his entire world upside down for them. This doesn't fix everything, she whispered. I know. We still have a lot to work through. I know that too. But maybe we can try. Actually try this time. The smile that broke across Hyun-woo's face was worth everything. He didn't try to kiss her, didn't push for more than she was ready to give, just stood there smiling like she'd handed him the world. Which maybe she had. The next few weeks were different. Better. Hyun-woo started seeing a therapist, actually going every week and doing the work to unpack all the emotional damage his upbringing had caused. He'd tell Solane about the sessions sometimes, hesitant and uncomfortable, but trying. Apparently, I have intimacy issues, he said one night over takeout. You don't say, Solane grinned. My therapist says I use control as a substitute for emotional connection because vulnerability feels dangerous. He paused. She's annoyingly right about everything. I like her already. They started doing normal couple things, movies, museums, a cooking class where Hyun-woo proved he was absolutely terrible at anything involving a kitchen. How did you burn water? Solane asked, genuinely impressed. I have a gift, a terrible, terrible gift. She laughed so hard she got hiccups. He ordered pizza and counted it as a win. But the real change came in the small moments. The way he'd text her good morning before his meetings. How he started asking about her day first instead of launching into his problems. The time he flew in early just to go to her prenatal class, looking absolutely ridiculous among all the pregnant women, but refusing to leave. "This is important to you, so it's important to me," he said stubbornly, attempting a modified cobra pose. Solane fell a little more in love with him right there on that yoga mat. 28 weeks pregnant, Solane finally let Hyunwoo feel the baby kick. They were watching a movie at his hotel room, nothing fancy, just sprawled on the couch with snacks. The baby had been particularly active all day. "Here," she grabbed his hand and placed it on her stomach. Hyunwoo froze. "Are you sure? She's your daughter too. You should know what she feels like." They waited. 5 seconds. 10. Then a strong kick right against his palm. Hyunwoo's expression completely transformed, wonder and fear and love all mixing together. "She's so strong," he whispered. "She's a fighter. Takes after her dad, probably. God, I hope not. I hope she's exactly like you." Another kick, harder this time. "I think she heard you," Solane laughed. Hyunwoo kept his hand there the next hour, feeling every movement, his expression soft and amazed. This was the man she'd needed all along. But of course, nothing stayed perfect for long. Week 32, Solane started noticing things. Little things at first. The same car parked near her apartment multiple days. A man in a coffee shop who seemed too interested in her conversation. The feeling of being watched. She told herself she was paranoid, until she came home to find her locks had been changed. What the hell? She tried her key 3 times before the landlord appeared. "Oh, Miss Williams, sorry, I should have mentioned. Building policy, all units getting new security locks." He handed her a new key. "Shouldn't be any issues." But Solane's instincts screamed wrong. She called Hyunwoo immediately. "Did you have anything to do with my locks being changed?" "What? No. Why would I?" "Because weird things keep happening, and you're the only person I know with the resources to orchestrate this kind of thing." "Solane, I swear on our daughter's life, I have no idea what you're talking about." He sounded genuinely confused, which somehow made it worse, because if it wasn't Hyunwoo, then who? That night she stayed at Jade's. The next morning, she hired a private investigator. What he found made her blood run cold. The car watching her apartment registered to a shell company. The building's new locks installed by a security firm with ties to organized crime. Her mail being copied before it reached her. Someone was tracking her every move, and they were good at it. "There's more," the investigator said, sliding another folder across the table. "Your apartment building was purchased 3 weeks ago. New owner's name is buried under about 15 layers of LLCs, but I managed to trace it." He showed her the final document. The building was owned by Hyunwoo. Her hands went numb. He'd bought her building, changed her locks, was probably behind all of it, and he'd looked her in the eye and lied. She called him from the investigator's office. "Solane, hi, I was just about to—" "You bought my building." Silence. "Solane, I can explain. You bought my building, changed my locks, had people following me, and you lied to my face. It's not what you think." "Then what is it?" Her voice cracked. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've been obsessively controlling my life while pretending to respect my boundaries." "I was trying to protect you." "From what?"
From the people who might come after you because of me." His control finally snapped. "I left the business, Solane, but that doesn't mean everyone's happy about it. There are people who see you and our baby as leverage, as a way to get to me.
So yes, I bought your building to make sure security was tight. I changed your locks to better ones. I had my best people watching to make sure no one else was watching. I did all of it to keep you safe." Solene's anger wavered. "You should have told me." "You would have said no." "Exactly, because it's my life, Hyunwoo, my choice." "And what was I supposed to do? Let you be vulnerable? Let our daughter be at risk?" "You were supposed to trust me enough to have the conversation." They both fell silent, breathing hard. Finally, Solane spoke quietly. "I can't do this." "Don't say that. You promised you'd changed, but you're still the same man who thinks he knows what's best and makes decisions without me." "Solane, please. I need you to leave Chicago. Actually leave this time. Give me space to think." "How much space?" "I don't know." Tears ran down her face. "Maybe forever." She hung up before he could respond. The investigator looked uncomfortable. "For what it's worth, the security he installed is top-notch, and I didn't find evidence of anyone else tracking you. He might be telling the truth about the protection angle." "That doesn't make it okay," Solane whispered. But it did make it complicated. That night, alone in Jade's apartment with her cousin asleep in the next room, Solane made a decision. She pulled out her laptop and drafted an email. Not to Hyunwoo, to the FBI. Because if there really were dangerous people from his old life circling, then she needed protection that didn't come with manipulation. And maybe it was time Hyunwoo faced some real consequences for the life he'd lived, even if it meant burning their second chance to the ground. She hit send before she could change her mind. 3 days later, 2 federal agents showed up at her door, and Solane realized she might have just made the biggest mistake of her life. Because the FBI wasn't just interested in Hyunwoo, they were interested in her, too. Apparently, 18 months of managing illegal finances meant she wasn't exactly innocent either. "We'd like to offer you a deal," the lead agent said. And Solane understood with sinking certainty that everything was about to get so much worse. Follow next for part 6. This story is getting intense, and we're not even done yet. Make sure you're subscribed because the next part is going to flip everything you think you know. Drop a comment telling me if Solane made the right call going to the FBI. The FBI agents sat in Jade's living room like they belonged there. Agent Morrison was older, gray hair, tired eyes. Agent Chen was younger, sharper, watching Solane like she was a puzzle to solve. "Let me be clear," Morrison said. "You're not under arrest. Yet. But the work you did for Hyunwoo Bak's organization absolutely constitutes money laundering. That's 20 years federal prison if we decide to prosecute." Solene's hand went to her stomach automatically. The baby kicked against her palm, completely unaware her mother's world was imploding. "However," Chen leaned forward, "we're willing to offer complete immunity if you cooperate." "Cooperate how?" "Testify against Hyunwoo. Provide documentation of the financial structures you created. Help us dismantle what's left of the organization." Solane felt sick. He already sold the business. He's out. "Is he, though?" Morrison pulled out photos. Hyunwoo meeting with known criminals. Financial transfers from just last week. Looks pretty active to me. "No, that couldn't be right. These have to be old," Solane said. "He promised—" "Men like Hyunwoo Baek don't just walk away," Chen interrupted. "They say what you want to hear, but the business is in their blood." Solane stared at the photos. They were dated from 3 days ago, right after their fight. Had he lied about everything? "I need time to think," she whispered. "You have 48 hours, Morrison said, standing. "After that, we move forward with or without you. And trust me, you want to be with us on this." They left their cards and disappeared. Solène sat frozen on the couch. Jade came out of her bedroom, where she'd been hiding. "What are you going to do?" "I have no idea." Her phone buzzed. A text from Hyun-woo. "We need to talk. Please, it's important." She almost deleted it, but something made her respond. "Navy Pier, 1 hour. Come alone." She needed to look him in the eye when she asked if he'd been lying this whole time. Hyun-woo was already there when she arrived, standing near the edge, looking out at the water. The Chicago skyline glittered behind him. He turned when she approached, and she saw immediately that something was wrong. He looked exhausted, worried, almost scared. "Thank you for coming," he said quietly. "The FBI came to see me today." "He knows." "You know?" "I have people who tell me things. Not to control you," he added quickly, seeing her face, "but because I meant what I said about threats, and the FBI definitely qualifies. They showed me photos of you meeting with criminals, recent photos." Hyun-woo sighed heavily. "I can explain that." "Can you? Because I'm really tired of explanations that turn out to be lies." "I'm not lying." He pulled out his phone, showing her messages. "Tae-hun is dismantling the organization, but it's complicated. People are angry. There have been threats. Those meetings you saw? I was trying to negotiate safe exits for people who want out, paying off debts so no one gets hurt. It's messy, Solène, but I'm trying to do it right." She wanted to believe him. God, she wanted to. "The FBI offered me immunity if I testify against you." Hyun-woo went very still. "Are you going to take it?" "I don't know." Tears burned her eyes. "They said I could go to prison too for the work I did. 20 years, Hyun-woo. Our daughter would grow up without me." "No." The word came out sharp, absolute. "That's not happening." "Then what am I supposed to do?" "Let me fix this." "How? You can't make federal charges disappear." "Actually, I might be able to." He looked at her steadily. "What if I gave them something better than testimony?" "What do you mean?" "I know things, Solène, about people way bigger than me. Politicians, judges, actual dangerous criminals. The FBI would love that information." He paused. "I trade what I know for immunity for both of us." "You'd do that?" "In a heartbeat. You and your daughter come first, before my pride, before my secrets, before everything." Solène's throat tightened. "If you give them that information, you'll have targets on your back forever." "Probably." "Hyun-woo, I don't care." He stepped closer. "I failed you before by choosing my business over you. I'm not making that mistake again. Whatever it takes to keep you both safe, I'll do it." She searched his face for any sign of deception. Found only desperate sincerity. "Okay," she whispered. "We go to the FBI together." The deal took 3 weeks to negotiate. Hyun-woo's lawyers were excellent, but the FBI drove a hard bargain. In the end, Hyun-woo agreed to full cooperation, witness protection if necessary, and permanent exit from any criminal enterprise. In exchange, both he and Solène received complete immunity. But there was a catch. "You'll need to testify in approximately 40 different cases," Morrison explained. "This process could take years, and there are people who will absolutely want you dead for what you're revealing." "I understand," Hyun-woo said calmly. "Do you?" Chen looked skeptical. "Because we're talking about some of the most powerful criminals in the country. The moment you start talking, your life as you know it ends." Hyun-woo glanced at Solène, at her very pregnant stomach. "My life as I knew it already ended. I'm building something better now." The first trial started 2 months after their daughter was born. Nari came into the world screaming, absolutely furious about everything. She had Solène's dark skin and Hyun-woo's eyes and a temper that promised she'd never let anyone push her around. Hyun-woo cried when he held her for the first time. Actually cried, tears running down his face while Nari grabbed his finger with her tiny hand. "She's perfect," he whispered. "You're both perfect." Soleil, exhausted and overwhelmed and more in love than she'd ever been, pulled him down for a kiss. Their first real kiss in over a year. It was soft and sweet and tasted like new beginnings. "I love you," she said against his lips, "even though you're impossible and frustrating and probably going to drive me crazy." "I love you too," he kissed her again, "and I'm definitely going to drive you crazy, but I'll make it worth it." "You better." The trials were brutal. Hyun-woo spent hours on the stand, revealing secrets that made national news. Soleil watched from the gallery, holding Nari, her heart in her throat every time Hyun-woo named another name. There were threats, security details, 2 attempts to get to them that the FBI stopped before they got close. But Hyun-woo never wavered. He told the truth every time, no matter the cost. And slowly, piece by piece, they built a real life together. Hyun-woo got a legitimate job as a consultant for a security firm. Turns out knowing how criminals think makes you excellent at stopping them. Soleil started her own accounting business, working exclusively with nonprofits and small businesses. They bought a small house in a quiet Chicago suburb. Nothing fancy, just 3 bedrooms, a yard for Nari, and enough space for the family they were becoming. On Nari's first birthday, Hyun-woo proposed. Actually proposed this time, not a business arrangement. He did it during her birthday party, surrounded by friends and family and cake-covered toddlers. He got down on one knee in the middle of the chaos. "We did this backward the first time," he said, holding out a simple ring, nothing like the ostentatious diamond from their first marriage. "I married you before I loved you, before I knew how to be the man you deserved. But I'm asking now, knowing exactly what I'm asking for. Marry me again, Soleil. Let me spend the rest of my life proving I can be the husband and father you both deserve." Soleil was crying. Nari was trying to eat the ring box. Jade was filming the whole thing. "Yes," Soleil said through tears and laughter. "Yes, you absolute disaster of a man. Yes." They got married 6 months later in Jade's backyard. Small ceremony, just family and close friends. Soleil wore purple because Hyun-woo had remembered it was her favorite color. Nari was the flower girl and threw petals at people with chaotic glee. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, Tae-hyun jokingly raised his hand. "Hyung, you're an idiot and you don't deserve her, but she seems to love you anyway, so I guess it's fine." Everyone laughed. Hyun-woo flipped him off while still holding Soleil's hands. It was perfect. Life settled into something beautifully normal. Hyun-woo coached Nari's soccer team, even though he didn't understand the rules. Soleil joined the PTA and terrified the other parents with her organizational skills. They had family dinners and movie nights and all the ordinary things Soleil had dreamed about. But 2 years into their new marriage, everything changed again. Hyun-woo came home early from work, face pale. "What's wrong?" Soleil asked immediately. "Tae-hyun called. Someone's been asking questions about us, about Nari." Soleil's blood went cold. "Who?" "He thinks it might be my father." Hyun-woo's father, the man who'd built the empire Hyun-woo had helped destroy, the man who'd disowned Hyun-woo publicly when the trials started. "Why now?" Soleil whispered. "Because Nari's getting older, because she's his heir, technically, if he wants to reclaim that legacy." Hyun-woo's hands were shaking. "He's been in Korea this whole time, but Tae-hyun heard he's coming to the States." "What do we do?" Hyun-woo looked at her with those eyes she'd fallen in love with, determined and scared and absolutely certain. "We protect our family, whatever it takes." And Soleil knew their peaceful life was about to get complicated again. But this time, they'd face it together. Hyun-woo wasn't the cold, distant man who'd let her walk away anymore. He was her partner, her husband, the father who read bedtime stories in terrible accents and let Nari paint his nails. Whatever came next, they'd handle it. Because some love stories don't end with happily ever after. They end with happily ever fighting. And Solen wouldn't have it any other way. 3 weeks later, a car pulled up to their house. An older Korean man stepped out. Expensive suit, cold eyes. Hyun-woo's father had arrived, and he'd brought lawyers. "Hello, son. We need to discuss my granddaughter's future." Hyun-woo stepped in front of Solen and Nari. "Over my dead body." His father smiled. "That can be arranged." The war for their family had officially begun. But as Solen held Nari close and felt Hyun-woo's hand find hers, she knew one thing for certain. They'd survived everything else. They'd survive this, too. Together. And that's where we leave Solen and Hyun-woo for now. If you want to see their story continue, let me know in the comments what you think Hyun-woo's father is planning. Hit that subscribe button, because this family's drama is far from over. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.